Welcome to the People Performance Podcast, where we discuss all things people performance. The People Performance Podcast is made up of 3 series. First up, we have the Leader Lounge episodes with founder of T2, Martin Johnson. Then we have the guest interview episodes. And finally, we have our performance episodes delivered by our very own T2 consultants. If you've listened to our podcast and you want to get in touch and find out a little bit more about what we do or how we can help and support you, reach out via help@trans2performance.com. You can stream and listen to our podcast on all available platforms. So for now, sit back, tune in and enjoy the People Performance Podcast.
Coming up on this episode.
If somebody's not competent, you can't pace set them because they'll freak out.
I think the one thing to sort of measure on pace setting is it's not micromanaging.
Yeah.
Just because you're setting the pace doesn't mean that you have to be all over people.
You're not going to get somebody running a hose out going, we never said please. That's not happening because they know that right now in that situation that is absolutely relevant. And that's all it is. It's not aggressive. It is absolute lack of ambiguity, and that's all it is.
Hello and welcome to the People Performance Podcast with me, James Cooper.
And me, Spencer Locker.
How is Spencer Locker?
He's well.
Good.
Thank you very much. How is James?
Very well. Very well, thank you very much. And I think there's a few topics that we're going to speak about today, Spencer.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to provide everybody that's watching and listening with a little bit of background into what we're talking about.
Okay.
And it is quite situational, isn't it, Spencer?
Absolutely.
In fact, it's part of our situational leadership model that we use at T2. So what are we talking about today? Well, I think it's quite simple to really look at, but there's so many people that do it in many different ways.
Yeah.
Some of the terminology we use at T2 might be, you might make links to other bits of language, but we're going to deep dive into quite a lot of this anyway. So please, if you are a leader and you are in positions of leadership, or even you just looking at leaders and thinking, well, what do they do? How do I become a leader? Well, we're going to talk about leadership styles. What are your initial thoughts on leadership styles, Spencer?
Well, I'm a big fan of the situational leadership model, and I think that as much as we're going to be talking about one element of it, it's quite important to understand or appreciate that to get a full picture, you need to understand about, firstly, how your people show up, how they present, what mindset do they display, and that is going to very much influence the way that you lead. We talk about leadership styles, and some people sort of say, well, I have a leadership style, and I'm absolutely sure that you do. But the best leaders have got the capacity to display a little bit of reading the room, situational intelligence, situational awareness rather, emotional intelligence, and sort of realising that actually some people will perform better if you lead them in one way, in one style, but that style isn't necessarily going to work for everybody.
So when we bring this back to who we are as, or who T2 are as leaders, we actually use these 6 leadership styles.
Yeah.
And I think that's to become an effective leader, by the way, isn't it? So like you've just mentioned, it isn't just one leadership style and then that's the broad brush. We have to adapt, right?
Yeah, I suppose there's without over-egging the leadership pudding, I think we've got to start thinking about being a master communicator.
Okay.
We've got to be able to, we've got to understand that we might have a message to give, a message to send, a message to transmit, but that's only a small part of it. They've got to receive it and they've got to understand it. There's going to be a consistent message. But the thing is, as much as you have a consistent message, your style might change depending on the person you're transmitting it to.
Yeah, and I think it comes to sort of a little bit of a cornerstone here. We're not saying that there's one right way or there's one wrong way, right?
No,
but we are talking about, to be that effective leader, is that every leader will have a natural sort of default leadership style that they actually enjoy doing, or they'll find quite easy.
There may be one or two.
Okay.
There may be one or two, or a number. Let's not put a number on it, but a number of leadership styles that you find easy to sort of lean into. Again, if you've got any reading a situation or reading an emotion, you've got to have the capacity to sort of lean into a leadership style that will get that outcome. But there's going to be some that are more difficult to do than others.
Yeah, and I think even if it is that, it's selecting or applying the right leadership style to get the best out of that, or it's a conscious decision, if you like, to pick the right leadership style for that situation.
Sure, and I think when you look at it in the whole, when you look at it in the context of the situational leadership model, ultimately, what we'd like to do is we'd like to get everybody to be in top right performance. So they're high on performance and high on behaviours. So positive behaviours and good performance will get you into the top right. And I think that when we've got everybody performing, or when we've got a lot of people performing and we're having a good day, anybody can be a good leader when everything's going well. But when things start going a little bit wrong, when we've got people going off the reservation, they're going into different situational leadership zones, which we'll talk about in another podcast. Well, now what we want to do is we want to get them back into that top right performance. So how are we going to get them moving in that right direction?
Okay, so let's deep dive into some of these components of the leadership styles then. And I think if it is, Spencer, just give us a really high level overview of the 6 leadership styles, and then a brief sort of little bit nothing too crazy from a description point of view, but because we're going to go into each one of them individually, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got visionary. Visionary is quite an interesting one. Can't be mistaken for strategic, but visionary is getting people behind the dream and selling people the dream. We've also got amiable. Amiable likes peace and harmony. He likes everybody singing from the same song sheet, pulling in the right direction. Calm seas a steady ship. But yeah, your amiable leadership, not necessarily conflict and confrontation wise. We've got coaching. This doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a qualified coach. What we're saying, we've got to be coach-like, using coaching skills or coach-like skills in the context of leadership. Then we've got a collaborative. Our collaborative leadership style is actually making sure that it's inclusive and it's getting people involved and potentially decision making. We talk about. What's the leadership style when the person's closest to the problem?
Dynamic
subordination. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. But yeah, bit of dynamic subordination. You might use a little bit of collaboration there, understanding that some people are more suited or more experienced in certain things. But we'll talk about that in a bit. We've got pace setting.
Yeah,
pace setting is quite an interesting one where many people get confused with pace setting as being a mindset type, but it's actually a leadership style. So recognizing when our people need to be pushed, so challenged, what we need to achieve, how we're going to achieve it. It's pushing them a little bit, challenging them a little bit, making sure that they're not necessarily resting on the laurels. But again, it's when it's appropriate to use it. Really interesting, really sort of productive leadership style. And then I think the final one we've got directive. Yeah. Directive. Now, again, I know we're going to do a deep dive in this, but talking to many people and asking them what they think about directive leadership, and it's like, oh, I don't like directive leadership. It's usually because their experience of directive leadership has been aggression.
Applied wrong.
Yes, yeah. So again, I think one thing that we can't forget, and I know we're going to deep dive it, but one thing we can't forget is directive leadership is just a lack of ambiguity.
Okay. So there's your high overview. So you've got 1 visionary, 2 amiable, 3 coaching, 4 collaborative, 5 pace setting, 6 directive. So let's start with visionary then, Spence. So if I was to sort of think about some of the best visionary leaders and what they do and some of the things that we relate to in workshops to visionary leadership. So it is setting that long-term goal, but not actually giving them the day-to-day steps. And I think understanding that we're trying to get people behind the vision, behind the dream, and really getting to, right, let's get on the right track and try and know where we're going, rather than loads of people going off in different directions.
Yeah.
Setting the vision gives you that clarity of, you know what, the result may be this. This is where we're going, and there's your flag on the hill, if you like.
Yeah, I think the time frame is sort of immaterial, really, because the thing is, I know we sort of talk about long-term vision, but it doesn't necessarily have to be long-term vision. It may very well be in 6 months' time. We're not talking to the 3 to 5 year strategic thing. And again, some people mistake visionary with strategic, and strategic is actually how we're going to achieve the vision.
Yeah.
The vision is that sort of flag on the hill, the dream, the idea, the feeling, I suppose. Some people need to know the why. And I think that if you deploy the visionary leadership style appropriately with the right person in the right situation, they might have all the tools they want. They might have the resources. They might have a time frame. They might have all sorts of little intricacies, but are missing the why. And sometimes that vision is the why. Yeah. So this is what the future looks like. This is what we're trying to achieve. It's selling the dream, getting people behind the dream.
Yeah, okay. So hopefully people that are listening and watching might have experienced people where they've actually gone in with the visionary leadership and it's actually landed really, really well. There is also the flip side of that coin, which I think we should look at for all of these leadership styles, is when it's not implemented in the right situation.
Or with the right person.
Correct.
So, again, we've met many people. When you talk, if they are very much the sort of analytical, sort of an analytical bent, and I'm not saying all analytical people are like this, but the thing is, if somebody is a subject matter expert and the strategy has not necessarily been thought of, somebody can come in and sell them the dream, and they might be sitting there going, that's all well and good, but if we don't sort this out now, that ain't going to happen. So again, it's the right mindset, the right situation. If somebody feels that maybe as a vision, you're trying to sort of sell them something rather than prove to them that this is, you get what I'm saying. If it's deployed in the wrong place with the wrong person, it's not necessarily going to do what it's designed to do.
Correct. Okay, let's move on to number 2 then. So I'm going to hand this one over to you, Spencer, as quite an amiable chap anyway. Amiable leadership, though, slightly different.
Yeah. So it's quite interesting with the amiability, the way the amiable leadership thing is. The amiable leader is very much the listening, considering. I would like to say passive. And when I say passive, I don't necessarily mean that they are not active leaders. But the thing is, there's another leadership style a little bit further down the list that we could confuse sometimes, and that's the collaborative. So just bringing that collaborative in, we will talk about it, obviously, but the thing is with the collaborative is more proactive. So we talked about talking to people. You've got an idea here. You've done this before. You've got a bit of it. Yeah, okay. What are your thoughts on this? You've got experience where this is concerned. Have you been through this before? So that subordinating that responsibility and things like that. That's very proactive. The amiability will listen, but not necessarily come looking for it. So if you've got something to say, I'll listen, but I'm not necessarily going to come looking for it. That amiability is more of a sit back, not necessarily be proactive. And you know what? If you're in a situation where you've got some subject matter experts in an established team that are very confident, you don't have to go looking for it. You may just very well be the decision maker.
Yeah, maybe creating the environment of psychological safety so that people can actually have the conversations.
Trust is huge.
There we go.
And again, well, obviously, trust is an element of psychological safety that we do talk about. But that amiability, that amiable leader is very much about promoting trust, not necessarily between them or just between them and the team, but within the team.
Yeah. The
whole environment is very trusting and very, because again, when you're all pulling in the same direction, you know where we're going, challenge state mindset. What do we need to achieve? How are we going to achieve it? There's very little sort of rubbing up against the getting the splinters out of a situation. Okay,
so we'll move on to number 3 then. So this is coaching. And obviously for the people that have been qualified coaches, we've done maybe a couple of qualifications internally or externally. ILM or whatever it is. But you mentioned about being coach-like.
Yeah.
So I think coaching, bring it down to what it actually means for leaders then. Well, I always come back down to the two words in our description of development or personal. So if it is personal development or improvement, or is it professional goals or some of those targets, if there is no development from a behavioural point of view or a professional development perspective, i.e. somebody's not getting anything from the communication, well, we're potentially not coaching them. We might be doing something else, but we're probably not coaching. So this is that identification or letting other people find their own ways towards the strengths and weaknesses. So there is a reason why someone would need to be coached.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's long-term, short-term goals, but it's them actually taking some of the information, having the discussion for development.
We mentioned earlier on, and I'm sure it'll be talked about in a separate podcast, the situational leadership model. And we've talked about or briefly mentioned about measuring people on the performance and the behaviours.
Yeah.
So when we look at that model and we can see that actually some people might not be performing as we would like them to perform, but they're open to development and coaching.
Yeah.
That's when you deploy a bit of coaching.
Yeah,
definitely, because actually, if they're open to it and they're going to improve, well, the performance will improve, but the behaviours are already high.
Yeah.
So but again, in the context of leadership, how are you going to be able to give people skills, outlooks, perspectives, knowledge to be able to improve their behaviours? So as a leader, deploying some leadership, some coaching skills might very well be beneficial.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So moving on to number 4 then, collaborative.
Yeah. So the collaborative, I mentioned it briefly earlier on when we were talking about the amiable stuff, but this is actually bringing people. It may very well be that with the collaborative, it might be that you're in a certain situation where you've got to be proactive, you've got to push it, you've got to drive this interaction, if you like, within a team. So it may be that the team is newly established. It may be that the team is newly established, but the members of the team are knowledgeable, experienced people. It may very well be that you've got to bring that team together, and that's when we get that sort of collaborative, bringing people together, being collaborative with a team until they sort of start leaning into that, and then even then that might be that where you just step back with the collaboration. You make a collaborative team. You realise suddenly that actually these people who are highly motivated and highly skilled and highly experienced, they come together as a team. All you are is the decision maker.
So you're getting the right people in the right room, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Not only that, but if you do the collaborative bit and you create that collaborative culture within a team, you can disappear. You can turn around and say, I'm being seconded onto a project for 6 months. You carry on doing what you're doing. All I will do is I will give the responsibility of decision making to James. So now the team carry on doing what they're doing. Nothing changes. The only thing that's changed is the decision maker.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when we see leaders considering when they collaborate. I think it's interesting to bring it back down to the people, by the way, because it's who are you collaborating with who. Now, if you're the leader that sits above that, then you're sort of orchestrating that. So who is going to be in the room? Who are the people that are going to be making the decisions, like you mentioned? But fundamentally, it's not a coincidence that those people have ended up together from a leadership perspective.
And then it brings us on to the dynamic subordination subject.
Correct. Okay. So I think from a collaborative point of view, I think we've covered that, pretty much boxed it off pretty well. So I'm going to move quite quickly onto pace setting. For anybody that starts to think about that fast pace, and I think setting high standards and moving at pace from a leadership perspective, there is times and places to do so. I don't know about anybody else that's maybe watching this, but have you been in a situation where it has all been pace setting? I definitely have, but understanding that there is a time and a place. Currently, the sprint analogy of, right, this is when we're going to have to ramp up. This is the busiest time of the year. This is, and it's not just for us. There's different organisations that have these at different times of the day, the week, the month, the quarter, the year. So it's understanding that as a leader, when do you try to just get people moving a little bit quicker to a slightly higher standard, or a bit of both?
And who?
Correct.
Because I remember a mentor of mine once said, coach to competency, pace set beyond.
Okay.
So if somebody's not competent, you can't pace set them because they'll freak out.
Yeah.
They'll lose the mind. So coach competency. And again, we've also talked about people who will coach competency and then let go. And that's when people start getting bored, because you know what, I'm competent and I'll practice that, but there's no challenge. Nothing's pushing me. So what I'll do is I'll sit here with my boots on the desk, flicking elastic bands into the bin, because there's no challenge. I'm bored. Yeah. So it's again, recognising the atmosphere, the atmosphere within a team, within a workplace, and seeing if people are being a little bit sort of complacent, if you like, maybe.
Yeah.
That may very well require a little bit of pace setting. I would prefer people to recognise where pace setting is appropriate before complacency kicks in. But yeah,
I think the one thing to sort of measure on pace setting is it's not micromanaging.
Yeah.
Just because you're setting the pace doesn't mean that you have to be all over people. It's giving them even if not more freedom to go and do their thing and go and apply themselves to the project, to the next person, to the body of work or whatever it is. They need to be able to show those patterns of behaviour and start to think, right, this is serving me well now. Right, what if we go and we start to stretch a little bit and we pace set? Does that still work for you, or is there something else we might need to consider?
Yeah, and it's not something that can be constant either. It needs to be appropriate at time-wise. I always, when we talk about pace setting, I was thinking about that flow state theory. High challenge, high sport. Gets you into state flow. If you want to look that up, it's me high chick sent me high. Don't ask me to spell it. But yeah, flow state theory, really, really relevant, and
is that
appropriate?
And I think when we understand that, pace setting can be a little bit too much for some people, because, well, there's millions of different reasons why, but understanding that if people are very much just surviving, not necessarily thriving at this current stage, and there's obviously reasons for that. But when do you pace set? Who do you pace set with? Do you recognise as a leader that your team are at capacity? Yeah. And if you just push them that little bit further forward in the wrong context, in the wrong environment, could be detrimental.
Sure, yeah.
But in the right environment,
yeah, absolutely. The right place, the right time, with the right people in the right way. Again, it may very well be that how you pace set. Yeah. Because when we talk about how you pace set, it's basically passing over intelligence. This needs to be done. This is, you could do this here. You could do that there. High quality intelligence will put people in top right. But if you just crack the whip and say just JFDI, then they're just going to slip into that journey zone, because the quality of the intelligence is not just do it. It's we need again a little bit of motivation. We need a little bit of vision maybe, but we need everybody on board. But just cracking the whip just ain't going to work.
So let's be clear. Pace setting is an art form, really.
Oh yeah.
When you get your messages right and you're understanding that you are informing people, that's allowing them the freedom to not just stand over and micromanage. It is that understanding of when, who, and what you are telling people to do. Okay, and then that moves on to number 6. So directive, Spencer.
Yeah. So we did briefly touch on this earlier on when we were doing the high level stuff. So many people see directive leadership as being aggressive and confrontational, and that's simply not the case. So with our directive, it's merely a lack of ambiguity. It's clarity. It's absolute understanding. It's minimalist, but it is absolutely that. We work a lot with fire and rescue services, emergency services, But this particular example is very relevant to fire and rescue. So fire and rescue usually operate in one of two environments. They're either working on the fire ground at an incident or off it, not at an incident. And you'll find that very, very few of them will communicate in a directive style off the fire ground. This is around the station when we're doing training, when we're doing development, when they're turning the kit round, when they're doing their sedentary duties, if you like. As soon as we get on the fire ground, it may very well be absolutely relevant to talk in a directive style. You'll turn up, let's say you're a senior firefighter, you turn up to an incident, you'll be there, you'll assess the situation, and then you'll start going, you run a fire hose out, you go get the jaws of life. That's all directive is. You're not going to get somebody running a hose out going, we never said please. That's not happening, because they know that right now in that situation, that is absolutely relevant. And that's all it is. It's not aggressive. It is absolute lack of ambiguity, and that's all it is.
Yeah, and I think there's something that was I think it was a message that one of us, I think it was in the consultant, but it's always stuck with me, and we relate it back to some of the ERT principles, if you like. So you need to do what, this, by when, now, and that's not that aggressiveness is taken out of it. It is just, it's not personal, but in this current situation, there is a call to action here. So why are you still stood in front of me? Go.
And I think it's quite useful to recognise, and again, I'm sure this will be mentioned in one of the later podcasts, when we're talking about situational leadership, generally speaking, we'll use directive leadership skills in a certain situation, that situation when somebody's not performing and doesn't have very good behaviours.
Yeah.
So all we are doing really, in the boiled down essence of directive leadership style, is we're giving somebody a choice. You can either do what we're asking you to do or don't. And both will have consequences.
Yeah.
The consequences of doing what we're asking you to do will be growth, performance, productivity, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
If you choose not to do that, then we're going to have a conversation.
Slightly different.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we start to talk about embedding these things, I think we've pretty much put all of it together for people. So I think really, Spencer, the last thing to do is just summarise if there was a really succinct way of doing it, and again, situational leadership. But if there was a summary, or maybe even just a strapline that you would offer everybody that's listening and watching this now, what is the potential for that to be?
Well, firstly, it would be a case of don't just lean into what you know and ignore what you don't particularly like.
Yeah.
So it may very well be that some people will say, right, I can either be visionary or directive. Can't be doing that. Can't be doing that amiable. Oh no. Well, you need to learn how to do it. One of the again, we work with medical professionals. And one of the things that medical professionals do is they make a judgment call on what they see. So doctors. So when doctors are talking about patients, how does the patient present? The mindset of the person you're leading is going to dictate how you lead them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So again, if we're starting to think about mindsets, and I'm sure this is going to be on another podcast, but if you consider the mindset types that we see, well, you can match a leadership style to that. Because ultimately, you're not trying to meet it, you're trying to influence that mindset to go into that top right performance area.
So what we're saying then, Spencer, is that you've got to be a bit more flexible, right, as a leader. And that might be a number of different, maybe a blend of a couple of leadership styles that are relevant for that situation.
Sure, but you need to be able to take all of these leadership styles and demonstrate them authentically. And when I say authentically, you need to be you. There are people out there who struggle with directive. Yeah. It's probably the most common one that we turn around to people and say, which one do you struggle with? And they'll say directive. But once they get past the fact that it's not aggressive, you are not expected to be hands on hips, power stance, yelling in somebody's face. That's not what directive is. And once you get past that, actually, I can have a lack of ambiguity. What I need to understand is, for me, authentically, I will be on the softer end of directive, but I need to be aware that I can't be too soft to actually compromise what I'm trying to achieve.
So would it be then that we are suggesting to truly excel with leadership in general, we've got to recognise and deploy the leadership style that is the most appropriate for the given situation.
And the given mindset, yes.
And the given mindset. So the people that are in that situation and the situation as a whole. Okay.
Absolutely.
Spencer Locker, I think we've covered a lot of different details in there, but I'd like you to... First of all, thank you for being in the podcasting room with. This is the first time we've been in the new podcasting room together.
Isn't it posh?
It is posh. And I think from everybody at T2, we'll see you on the next People Performance podcast. Goodbye.
Bye now.
The People Performance Podcast, brought to you by T2.